Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's Questline Digital webinar, our final one of the year on 2023 email marketing best practices and trends. My name is Maureen Murky, and I'm the producer and host for today's webinar. Before we begin, we want to cover just a few housekeeping items with you. First, if you have any questions during the webcast, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A section just to the right of the presentation window. We will try to answer all questions during the webcast, but if a more in-depth answer is needed or we run out of time, they will be answered later via email. Some networks may cause sites to advance more slowly than others, so logging off of your VPN is recommended. If your sites do fall behind, pushing F5 on your keyboard will refresh the page. If you experience any other disruptions during the broadcast, you can also use the Q&A section for any technical questions. We'll be sending everyone a follow-up email, which will include a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation and a playback link to the recording of today's webinar. We will also have a poll question toward the end of the presentation and would greatly appreciate your participation in that. The results of that poll can be viewed by accessing the Polls tab from the widget at the bottom of your screen. There will also be a brief survey at the conclusion of the event, and I'll provide further details on that later in the webinar. Please be aware that you are not the only participant today. The names of the other attendees are not being shown to you for privacy. Now, let me go ahead and introduce today's presenters. Brian Lindemood is VP of Marketing and Content Strategy at Questline Digital. He leads the team that delivers engaging educational content solutions and digital marketing campaigns for energy utilities. Previously, Brian was Director of Content Marketing for Manta Media, one of the largest online communities for small business owners, where he worked to empower business owners with expert advice and educational resources around digital marketing. Nina Cummins has 20 years of extensive marketing experience with a focus in omnichannel marketing, advertising, digital sales, and media planning, with the ability to adapt and learn new industries. At Questline Digital, she's an account director responsible for clients including Con Edison, Entergy, and Duquesne Light Company. Nina has focused on digital marketing, branding, and content creation for many industry verticals, including utility, consumer packaged goods, healthcare, and retail. Outside of work, she serves on a board for a rare genetic disorder, enjoys time with her two sons, and traveling as much as possible. Now, today's webinar will be a conversation amongst everyone. I have questions and topics to cover with Brian and Nina, but please feel free to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. Today's webinar is all about looking ahead to the new year and how we can properly strategize for 2023. However, before we can look ahead, it is only right to take a look back. So last November, we held a webinar on the 2022 email marketing best practices and trends that we forecasted for the year. We talked a lot about the top 10 trends that we saw for 2022, which included creating an improved after sales experience, auditing and understanding your data, making more out of your newsletters, optimizing for all platforms and preferences, creating more interactive emails, ensuring your emails are accessible, showcasing user-generated content, utilizing preference centers, hyper-personalizing email campaigns, and last but certainly not least, changes to open rate and privacy. Now, we do not need to hit on every single one of these, but Brian and Nina, can you give us a quick rundown of how you think we did with our interpretations last year?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you for that great introduction, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. This is one of my favorite topics, so I really appreciate that you're all here to join in the discussion. So looking at this list from last year, and I can't believe it's been a year since we had this discussion, but I think this is a pretty accurate list. Certainly everything on this list was important in some way this year. Some of these things are still ramping up and will continue to be factors in the coming year. But there are a couple in particular that I want to touch on. So number one on the list, when we talk about the after sales experience, this is really about customer onboarding, setting customer expectations and then starting to deliver a personalized digital experience from the very first day of service. That personalization is the key. That's a trend that we're going to touch on a lot today. Personalization is becoming an expectation for customers with every interaction. So during onboarding, that's the time to capture customer interests and customer preferences that can be used to personalize future communications. As part of a welcome series, you want to ask customers, how do you want to hear from us? What channel do you prefer? What topics are you interested in? And then you can put that information to use building a customer relationship throughout the customer lifecycle. So then number 4 on this list, optimizations. That's really about making sure your communications are accessible and compatible across all devices. This was definitely a trend this year, and it's only going to get more important. The big one that you hear a lot about is dark mode. You need to make sure that your emails are compatible with dark mode. A lot of smartphone users now have their phones set at dark mode either all the time or in the evening at night, and you want to make sure your emails look good there. Your emails and your website also need to be mobile friendly. Most emails now are read on phones, so your mobile design really needs to be your top priority. And then there are considerations to make sure that your emails and web designs are accessible for those who are colorblind, for instance, or visually impaired, that your videos or audio have captions for those who are hearing impaired. There are a lot of best practices like that, really to ensure accessibility for all of your customers. So, Nina, those are my picks. I'm interested to hear your reaction to last year's list of trends.
Absolutely. I think we were pretty on track with what we were saying last year. Specifically, I know my clients have done a ton of work diving into their data for their emails, newsletters, as well as social media. Data will continue to play a big role in how we market. The changes to open rates and privacy have definitely been big conversations throughout the year, and I know we're going to keep talking about it in this upcoming year and today. One topic that I'm not sure that was fully hit upon this past year was the hyper-personalization. I do know that this is still a very important topic, and I think that we'll dive into that headfirst in 2023.
Awesome. Thank you both. With that, let's dive into talking about 2023, shall we? So again, we're going to keep this casual. I may even have a few guest appearances, surprises throughout the webinar. But the topics I wanted to touch base with you two today are interactive content, key email metrics beyond open rate, privacy technologies and their impact, the rise of SMS marketing, push notifications, chatbots, voice search, self-service, increases in video marketing, and last, but again, certainly not least, segmentation and personalization expansion. So a full list today to talk through with you too. So let's go ahead and we'll start with interactive content. In last year's webinar leading into 2022, we talked a lot about how interactive email was growing in popularity. So what would you both say about interactive emails and interactive content in general for this upcoming year?
Yeah, well, thanks, Maureen. There's no doubt that interactive content is popular with customers, and it's really an effective way for marketers to share a message. So, when we're talking about interactivity, we're talking about any digital experience where there's some back and forth. The user takes an action or provides some information, and the content responds in some way. And the user takes another action, and the content responds. This could be a game, a quiz, a poll, or a survey, a calculator. The point is that the content requires the active participation of the user. You can't just sit there and look at it. The user has to be involved. The calculator doesn't do anything, unless the customer participates with it. So, of course, that it makes it more fun and engaging for the customer. It also makes the content more memorable. The attention that it requires basically ensures that your message is going to get across. We have a couple examples of interactive pieces that Questline has created and used for energy utilities. This first is Who Wants to Be an Energy Expert? This is an interactive quiz that sort of mimics a popular game show. It's a lot of fun. We have a whole series, I think at least 12 of these around different topics. It's been extremely popular. And a piece like this is a really effective educational tool for utility marketers. The quiz is fun, it's enjoyable. Customers don't even realize that they're learning something about energy use, because when these are well made, they pull the customers, attract the customer's attention, and the playing experience helps them remember what the questions and what they're learning about. Another piece that we've had a lot of success with are calculators. Calculators can be really important when you're talking about specific technologies. How much energy does a device use, or how much energy can you save with a certain behavior or technology. And these can be fun too. This example is a little calculator we did to show how different types of TVs use different amounts of energy, and also how the size of the TV impacts that. So there's several different interactive elements here, and what's really cool about it is that picture changes depending on your selection of the calculator. So you can see in these screenshots, as you make the TV bigger or smaller, the TV screen that the little characters are watching gets bigger and smaller. So it provides that kind of those fun visual cues along with the actual numbers that are telling you, a big TV is also going to be a little more expensive for your energy bill. So Nina, what are you seeing with interactive content?
I think it's really important to remember that interactive elements in emails are all about adding interest and movement so that messages stand out. It doesn't just mean surveys or calculators, as Brian was talking about. It can include imagery that changes when you hover or click. With interactive content, it's all about making it a two-way street kind of participation, letting customers explore something or learn about something, and your utility gaining that knowledge because those customers wanted to play that game or take a quiz or whatever it was. Generally, I don't think interactive content is going anywhere. The research shows that it generates 5 times more views than static content. So if anything, I think utilities should increase their use of interactive content.
Awesome. Thank you both for those insights. Before we move on to our next session, like I briefly mentioned, I thought it would be fun to have some special Questline guest appearances today. So I'm going to kick us off and do our first one. So let me cue that up. Joe Pfeiffer, Questline Digital's creative director, wanted to share a little bit more about his thoughts on interactive content. So I'm going to let Joe take it away here.
Hi, I'm Joe Pfeiffer. I'm the creative director for Questline Digital. I'm here to talk a little bit about interactive emails, the pros, the cons, anything else in between. So interactive emails, we'll start with the pros. The pros of an interactive email. One of the nicest things about an interactive email is that you can not be forced to leave the email to do some of the things you would normally need to do with what we're doing now. So an example of that would be a survey. You could click on all the things you need in the survey and then never need to build a landing page. You would just hit submit and it would be gone. Simple, perfect, nice. You don't have to pay for the landing page to be built or spend time on that. We'll talk about that in a minute. There are hover states in interactive emails. You can hover over things. So if, for example, I'm a retailer, I have a t-shirt. I will have the front of the t-shirt. If you want to see the back of the t-shirt but take up no more real estate on the email, take your mouse, hover over it. Now, wow, you can see the back of the t-shirt. That's a neat thing too. That's nice and usable in many different forms. If you have a lot of information, you can have accordion folds. Accordion fold would just pull down a whole lot of information that's, again, not in the email, but it's giving it to you in little bite-sized pieces that you can click on, and then you're not forced to move to another landing page to get all that information as well. So those are some main pros to the interactive emails. You can drive attention visibly. Visibly, these emails can look a lot interactive, look a lot nicer and have a lot more going on. So you can drive attention to certain spots in the email. One of those would be your CTA. Your CTA, once a hover state or you hit a certain spot in the email, it can flash, it can do different things. The problem with that is if you don't know where you're supposed to click in your email without doing that, you probably have bigger issues. We'll talk about some of the cons. Some of the cons in these interactive emails. There's not enough support for them. So they're coded in AMP and some advanced CSSs and anything else. Right now, the email clients are dinosaurs. There are some that can handle it. There are some that can't. And without having your list broken up into each little section, it's not really worth the time to put that in there. Again, I will get on that in a sec. So once you get to the not having everybody able to use your email, that means you're going to build that email for this email client, you're going to build it for this email client, and so on and so forth. So you're going to be spending more money, and that's not something that any client wants to do. So you're also going to need more time. Your deadlines are going to need to be pushed out a little bit because it's not just the same old thing that you've been doing. You're going to have to build more time in it for your coders as well. And then finally, going back to the whole thing, what we were talking about, needing the pros and the cons, I fall on the side of it's a big con. Interactive emails we're not there yet. We're just not. You can have your interactive emails set up, but you're going to spend too much money. You're going to need too much time, and there's a big chance that it's not going to be able to reach all the people on your list, which is the worst thing. You don't want to do any of those. So there's a happy middle ground, and that middle ground would be a little more passive than you may be expecting when you're thinking of hover states and clicking on things. But animated GIFs are a great way to bring some attention to your email. They work in almost all email clients. There are some small exceptions, but there are workarounds for those. One thing I'll tell you with an animated GIF, if you're using the 2017 version of Outlook for a PC, it won't show it, but you can have you can just have the first screen up with all your information on it, and that's essentially your workaround. It's not a problem. You can do all the other things you were talking about, bringing attention to your emails, make it a little more flashy. These animated GIFs are the way to go, at least for now, until we get caught up and the email clients aren't dinosaurs. So that was my take on interactive emails.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Who knows who else we'll see today? So, okay, let's move into privacy technologies. I know that you both have mentioned to me that you guys have had a lot of conversations about Apple's changes and its effect on open rates and metrics. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you've learned so far from all of that? Brian, maybe specifically you could simplify the Apple privacy policy a little for us.
Yeah, thanks. I know that we've all heard about this and the impact that it's had on email performance metrics. And as you say, I'm sure Nina would agree. We have gotten a lot of questions from our utility clients this year about it. So Apple Mail privacy protection was introduced just about 1 year ago, last September. It allows users to prevent the tracking of if and when they open an email. Basically it prevents email senders, marketers like us, from knowing for sure if any individual customer opened an email. The way it works, Apple actually preloads every email message on a proxy server, which is recognized as an open. So the expected impact of this would be an artificial increase in open rate. In theory, you could potentially see a 100% open rate for Apple Mail users because all of their emails are being automatically opened, or machine read, as we call it. Well, we're not quite seeing that 100% open rate because there are other factors to control for. But for the most part, we are able to recognize which emails are machine read, so then we can see and measure what that impact is. What we're seeing is about an 11% increase in open rate across the board. So we're measuring 36% overall open rate this year, but the actual open rate is probably closer to 25% if you could take away the impact of Apple's privacy policy.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so to complement your insights, I have our second guest appearance. Wow, back to back. This is fun, isn't it, everyone? So we are going to have Jeremy Harning, our VP of Technology, jump in and say a few extra things. So, Jeremy.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Harning. I'm the Vice President of Technology here at Questline Digital, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the data that we're seeing behind the Apple Mail privacy impact, and give you a little insight into what's going on in the technical parts of this. So what I can tell you is that overall we've seen about an 11% inflation in our open rate. And what that means is it's gone from, if you just look at open rates overall across all the sends we do, it's gone from about 25% overall to 36% overall. And we can say with confidence that the inflated open rate is coming from computers that are opening these emails on Apple's behalf. And although we can't do it perfectly, because as time goes on, Apple will try to hide these and we'll continue to identify them, there's a little bit of a cat and mouse game between the platforms that we use to send emails and Apple trying to mask user opens. So going forward, as marketers, we need to understand that this is only going to get worse. More ISPs besides Apple will be doing this exact same thing where they're attempting to mask as much user behavior data as they can and keep it for themselves. So we as marketers need to be talking about more important metrics. We need to be talking about conversions. We need to be talking about clicks. We need to be talking about time on page and things that matter, where we absolutely know for 100% that the user behind the communication took an action that we care about. So as time continues, here at Questline Digital, we'll continue to focus on these things and hopefully make us all better marketers in the future.
Awesome. So Jeremy touched on this, but in our next topic, and Brian, maybe I'll kind of pass this one off to you for right now, but what kind of metrics should utilities be paying attention to besides open rate?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is the answer to the questions we get from utilities about this. So I would start with, what are the goals of your campaign? Probably your campaign goal is not to get customers to open an email. Your goal is to get them to take action, sign up for a program, switch to a new rate plan, buy a smart thermostat. The success metric should be how many customers took that action, how many converted to the new rate plan. Open rates, maybe can inform how we got there, but it's not going to determine if your campaign was successful or not. So, we as an industry, as a marketing industry, as the utility industry, we just really need to get past open rates. They're not reliable anymore. But, the good news is the more important metric, which, frankly, we probably should have been looking at all along, is that conversion rate or the conversion numbers. And so that's how we can still reliably measure if a campaign is successful.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian. I think that's really helpful to everybody on the call today. So I want to now jump over to SMS marketing. I don't know about you two, but in the past few months alone, I feel like I get a text nearly every day. And instead of my mom or a friend, it's a company, telling me about a new product they have or a sale that's going on. So where is this shift coming from? What should we expect in 2023 from this? And how can utilities kind of utilize these mobile communications more? And Nina, I think that I'll pass that to you right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've definitely received more text message marketing as well. I think we probably all have. Research shows that certain customers actually find these types of marketing more valuable to them. We saw that 68% of consumers find SMS messages from a company valuable versus only 46% with emails. I think people like this because, at least right now, it's pretty new. This is really hitting on exactly what multi-channel marketing means, which is connecting with customers where they are and with the messages they want to hear. We are on email, we're on social media, so text messaging only makes sense. It's quick, it's direct, and research shows that 98% of text messages are opened, and 1 in 3 consumers check their text notifications within 1 minute of receiving a text. We're also seeing stats that say that text marketing drives 8 times more engagement than email. We haven't necessarily reached the point where we've been digging into that at Questline Digital, but I do know that we're working on it. Clients are interested in this. They're seeing these statistics too, and we're trying to find out if it's valuable for them. Honestly, the answer is yes. After all, we do outage text alerts. We find that those severely increase customer satisfaction. We know that we send out text reminders when bills are due, and although those aren't necessarily fun communications, they're helpful, and in the long run, again, build customer satisfaction. So, long answer long, yes, SMS marketing is definitely here to stay, and I can see us jumping leaps and bounds working on it with clients in 2023.
Awesome. Thanks, Nina. I think you're definitely right. Thank you for sharing all that. Personally, I definitely see where, people are coming from. There are texts that I get that I immediately click the link and I want to check out what the company's talking about. But, with any communication channel, I want to opt in and opt out for some. So when you find something valuable, I think you look at it. So another kind of variant that I want to ask you about, Nina, with SMS marketing is push notifications. So kind of how do you see the impact of push notifications on customers, and how should utilities go about those kinds of notifications?
Great follow-up. With anything, I believe it's about adding value. Are push notifications going to provide value in some way to a customer's life? If so, then they're great. If not, then people aren't going to care. They'll turn off the notifications, and it's as simple as that. When it comes to utilities specifically, I think it's important to recognize that customers will probably want to be pretty choosy with what push notifications they receive from you. For example, payment reminders and outage alerts they'll probably want, but notifications about new programs generally, that may not work for them. You have to build push notifications with customers in mind and only share what they care most about. Let them choose what notifications they receive from you and how often. Don't just lump them all together. Overall, I think push notifications can be extremely helpful, but they're one of those things that can border on the line of annoying or evasive, and we just want to make sure that we're not crossing that line. You can segment push alerts just like you can segment email communications. Quick side note to those that don't know, Questline Digital has recently partnered with a data company, BlastPoint, and together we will be able to help you define the audience that will value your communications via email versus text versus social media. And I can't wait to start having those conversations with my clients and really directing them to the right place to serve up the right content.
Great. Thanks, Nina. Love that plug there. I do have another special guest appearance, so let me get that queued up. Susan Konaki, Questline's Digital's VP of Account Management, is going to jump in here and share a little bit more about what she's heard when it comes to SMS marketing and push notifications.
Hello everyone, I'm Susan Konaki, VP of Account Services here at Questline Digital. Thank you for joining our webinar. Like Nina and Brian, and I expect many of you, I've seen a significant jump in the number of texts I'm receiving, and they aren't just dentist appointment reminders anymore. That's because more retailers and organizations have been inviting me to opt into their text messages. And I have with those that I trust and value, usually in return for hearing about upcoming sales and promotions, or about advance notice on events I might want to attend. While most utilities have already been doing transactional text messages around outage and billing alerts, these marketing messages are relatively new to our space. To make a successful leap to non-transactional SMS, it's absolutely critical to get your customers to opt in. Because if you don't, fines are steep, as much as $1,500 per offense, which can add up quickly. So to reinforce what Nina said, it's critically important to first ask your customers, what do they want to hear from you about? Then make it easy for them to opt in to their preferred channel, whether that be text, SMS, email, snail mail, or any other channel. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Susan. I don't know about you guys, but I am loving these guest appearances. I'm having a blast. So next topic, chatbots and voice search. Do we care about them still? I feel like for a long time it's all we talked about. So should we still be talking about it, or are we past it?
We should definitely still be talking about it. I had a conversation just a few weeks ago with one of my clients to talk about chatbots and how we could implement them to create better communication between the customer. Also, another one of our clients uses voice assistance options through Google and Alexa, where customers can make a payment, report an outage, get energy savings tips, and more. I don't think a lot of utilities are investing in either of these things at the level we thought initially, but I do think that they're still very valid and useful options to keep in mind in the near future.
Yeah, Nina, I agree. I mean, it's definitely important to talk about chat. And I think customer expectations are just going to grow in this area. J.D. Power found that chat is the leading digital contact method for online customers. 42% of customers prefer chat compared to just 23% for email and 16% for social media. And I'll say personally, I 100% prefer chat to other channels. If you'll forgive the personal anecdote, I recently bought a new phone and switched my phone plan with Verizon all via chatbot. So, normally this is the kind of experience I would dread, haggling over a phone plan. But, it was wonderful over chat. I didn't have to go to a store. I didn't have to wait on hold all morning and then try to negotiate with someone on the phone. I had the chat window open, so I was doing other stuff. I completed the transaction on my time. And I also, was comparing plans in another window. So I was fully armed with information during the discussion. It was just, the chatbot just made it so easy. For utilities, any interaction that you're having with customers over the phone could probably be accomplished more efficiently with a chatbot. It's certainly more cost effective for you, and most of your customers would prefer it that way. And then even beyond replacing those call center calls, I think there are a lot of opportunities to enhance educational efforts with chat. You can add a chatbot to program pages of your website to answer customer questions. If you have rate plan options, add a chatbot to those web pages to help customers compare rates or offer advice about how to save on different rate plans. I think there are a lot of opportunities there with chatbots.
Fantastic. Thank you both for clearing that up. Brian, I love that example that you shared. It sounds like a much simpler customer experience than, calling in and yelling representative at the phone. So it's good to know that those things are still important for utilities to consider. Brian, a follow-up question though for you on voice search and voice optimization. What is its impact on content creation? Do you think that voice search impact, it'll impact what content we're making, especially as we dive into a new content strategy for 2023? Why or why not?
Yeah, definitely. And, this is another example of something that is, maybe just becoming important, but is only going to grow in importance in the future. And I'll tell you, I really see this with my 10-year-old son. He uses voice to interact with computers almost exclusively. He's always asking Google Home to search for answers for him. And for young people, for your future customers, I think that's just the way that they've always used these devices. My first inclination is to type into a computer. My son's inclination is to speak, even if there is a keyboard available. So, Maureen, you mentioned two different technologies there that will be a factor. The first is voice search. This is basically the equivalent of using a search engine on a computer, but instead of typing, you're asking your phone or asking a smart speaker what to search for. It's pretty much a normal internet search behind the scenes, but then the smart speaker will read to you what it found instead of just linking to a web page for you to read. The good news for marketers is there isn't anything special that you need to do to get your content to appear in voice search results technically, but content-wise, there are some best practices to make sure that it's found at the top of those search results. The goal here is you really want to be the first answer that the smart speaker finds and reads. Most people aren't skipping through to the second answer or the third answer when they're asking their smart speaker a question. You can do it. Believe me, I've seen my son do it, but for the most part, you're just listening to that first answer. So to get there, you want to produce high quality content. You want to make sure that your web content is written in a natural language that's easy to understand. So you want to clearly answer the kinds of questions that a voice search customer might ask. And when I say clearly, I mean clear both for the humans listening to the answer and for the computer that's looking for the answer. So there are some technical things to accomplish this. It's not hard, but you want to structure your content where you have an H2 headline that is a commonly searched for question. And then the paragraph that immediately follows that should be a concise answer that directly speaks to that question. Google, other search engines, they're prioritizing high quality content. Certainly a utility website should be a reliable source for answers to questions that customers have about energy. So you can think about an FAQ page or an energy answers page with that kind of structure. Questions and the clear, concise answers that would be helpful to customers, even if they read it, but then also would be easily found by voice search engines for customers who are hearing those questions read over a smart speaker. The other tactic you mentioned, Maureen, is voice optimization, which is related, just a little bit different consideration for voice search. But among other things, there's an accessibility consideration here. So people who are visually impaired may use an audio reader to navigate websites. But a lot of people now are using audio out of convenience. They listen to content on their phone, or they have their car read content to them. These apps can read any content. So again, there's not necessarily anything special you need to do, but there are some best practices to structure your content and make sure that it is easy for the computer to read. The biggest thing here is that you want to include alt text that describes any images on the page. And you also want to make sure that text is text. Not, for example, you don't want to have like a JPEG of a banner headline. You want the actual text of the headline so that the computer can read it. The other thing that you can do, and I think we have an example to show, Maureen, this is a capability that Questline is used in, Questline Digital is used in our newsletters, which is to embed an audio player within the content itself. This makes it easy for anyone to listen to an article without needing a separate app or device. Again, it's not, you could do one or the other. There's not a technical limitation, but this is just really about user convenience. It's a way for people who do prefer to listen to articles on their phone instead of reading articles. It makes it easy for them to press that play button and listen to the article.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and do that then. I'll hit that play button.
Great.
Take an energy break this afternoon. Good afternoon. When you're home for the day, your energy budget will likely be working a little harder than usual. Use these tips to make your afternoons more energy efficient. Go energy light on lunch. Making a quick sandwich doesn't use much energy. However, if you're reheating yesterday's leftovers, use the microwave. It uses a lot less energy than a standard oven. When you clean up, scrape your dishes instead of rinsing them and load them into your dishwasher. Wait until you have a full load to run it to avoid wasting energy.
Awesome. Brian, did you want to say anything else, or should we move on to our next topic?
That's good. Thank you, Maureen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brian. Okay, so our next topic that I want to discuss is video marketing. So according to research, videos help generate leads for 85% of marketers, and video ad spendings are set to increase by 42% by 2024. So my question for both of you is, what should utilities know about video marketing and how can they use this to their advantage? But before I let you take it away, I do have another guest joining us. So Matt Irving, Questline Digital's Creative Director of Video, has a few things that he wants to share first. So I'm going to have Matt take it away.
Hi, I'm Matt Irving, and I'm the Creative Director of Video Content here at Questline Digital. Video content is, been around for a very long time. I've been doing it for a long time. But technology has caught up so much that we can now get video content anywhere, anytime, pretty easily. And that's why it's been such a great tool for marketers of all kinds to use. It not only tells a range of different stories and ideas about products and services and just philosophies, but it does it really well in many different ways. In the utility industry, for example, there are a lot of awesome opportunities to leverage video content. We can explain complex processes or technology with people. We can educate on energy efficiency or even billing and other industry-specific topics that people outside the industry don't understand, right? But that they affect them. We can remind people of electrical safety or other safe choices that maybe they learned in grade school and forgot, or maybe they never knew in the first place, but now that they're doing more things that are complex, they got to understand them. And it's also a great way just to promote programs, right? Programs are in place, they're beneficial to people. It's easier to explain how that program works, how it benefits them, and showing that there's multiple ways to get about selling it and understanding it and taking advantage of it. And all of those different types of things can be accomplished in a lot of ways. Like, you get to talk in different tones. When someone reads something in print, they get to add their own voice to it, right? But when it's not in print, when there is an actual voice, that's the voice they get to choose. That's the case of you don't want the book to be better than the movie. because you want to control what is said and use your voice. So you can be the trusted neighbor. You can be an authority. You can say it with a smile or a laugh, or you can say it with great reverence and importance and make sure people understand just how serious that topic is. Video content can do a lot of things. I like to say it's part of a complete breakfast, though, right? It provides a big oomph. It can cover a lot of area, and it can have a really big impact. But it's not the best choice for everything. You don't want everything to be a video. It shouldn't do all those things. But the things that it does do, it can do really well, and it can elevate your plan as a whole. People ask me, well, what things should be a video, right? Well, a video or any content for that matter, not just a video, but any content, it should be relevant. It should be relevant to the consumers. It should be relevant to the space you're talking to the consumers in. And it should be relevant to you. I don't have the same conversations with my mother that I have with my best friend or my wife, or for that matter. So I think you have to understand who they expect you to be, and you have to fit within that role. Otherwise, it's going to feel very disingenuous. It's not going to feel relevant. It's going to feel like you're butting into a conversation where you don't belong. So when you're relevant and you bring a story to them, you have to make sure that it adds value to them in some way. Is it important, the topic that you're talking about or the thing that you're saying? Is it educational, interesting, fun? Any of those things can add value to people's lives. The best way to make sure that it's adding the right amount of value with a video, because you're investing in creating a video, but the person clicking on the video is investing their time too. So you have to make sure not only that it adds value, but it adds enough value to counter it. And you should always consider if video is the best way to send that message. If it can be handled better in an infographic or an animated GIF, don't make someone click on a video to watch it, because it raises the bar for the level of effort they have to put in and what they expect to be the result. So, is it worth the time watching? The level of complexity with videos can handle very complex topics to a certain extent, but when you're talking about a time-based form of communication, you want to make sure that it fits correctly and that you're not bombarding them with so much information that they're losing the message. So you can show and talk at the same time, and 1 + 1 can equal 3 very easily, but you need to also make sure that you're not making it so complicated and going through it so quickly that people are lost in that. And video, it can do all these great things. It's powerful. It's not going away. But the audience is continuing to be savvier and savvier. They have higher expectations of what they're seeing in videos and what they're getting out of them. And it's not just enough to put a video out there. It's got to have something. It's got to have that value. It's got to make them feel like, I'm glad I clicked on that video. I will click on that video again in the future, or another video that's similar. And that's part of the reasons why we go with series. We create content series. It allows us to create different types of ways to talk to people, voices, technology, the level of depth, for instance. Not every series that we make is meant for every person, but it allows people to pick and choose what they want, and they can see, oh, I like that style of video. I like the last time I watched this. I'm more likely to click on it the next time. And we know that's the case, and that's why we continue to do that. And if they don't click on that one video, at least we don't turn them off from every video that's posted, right? So understanding your audience and being able to show that you can be diverse in the way you use video is a big advantage as well. It's important to think about video as a tool. It's, a hammer's good for hammering and a screwdriver's good for screwing. And that's really what you got to get into. And it's got to be the right tool at the right time. And video can do that, but it can be critical to the success of your campaign to make sure you use it in the right way. Otherwise, it's not going to do everything it can do.
Okay, Brian and Nina, what do you think? Do you agree with Matt's perspective? Do you have anything else about video marketing?
Yeah, well, video is the most popular, most preferred content format for all customers. We've seen that for residential customers for a number of years, but more recently, it's also true for business customers as well. Even B2B content, video performs better than any other format. We just saw a survey, the Content Marketing Institute just released its annual content marketing survey. 73% of marketers say videos have become more important to their business in the last year, and 78% of marketers plan to invest even more in video next year. So I don't know if that's a trend or just the way of the world now, but Nina, I think video content's here to stay.
I agree. Brian and Matt are spot on. Video is one of the best ways to simplify complex topics for customers and make it not only easy to understand, but entertaining as well. We know from our benchmarks report last year that the average time customers spend engaging with our videos is nearly 94 seconds. Considering we aim to make a lot of videos a minute to minute and a half, that means customers are engaging with most, if not the entire video. When it comes to video marketing specifically, it's a no-brainer to continue to use video. Other research shows that 80% of consumers want to see more videos from businesses. And the fact that TikTok has been the #1 downloaded app for how long now just shows how much people want videos. I think this is 100% an important initiative for utilities to undertake if they're not already utilizing videos in their messaging.
Awesome. I wholeheartedly agree with you both, so thank you. All right, I have one more topic for us to discuss before we move on to some attendee questions. So my topic for us is segmentation and personalization. I know it's been a hot topic this past year, so how do you see that continuing into 2023?
Honestly, I see this as a priority. It's just growing and expanding. Our last webinar highlighted the awesome things that Con Ed is doing with segmentation, and they mentioned how they're hoping to dive even more into personalization in the coming year. I think a lot of utilities are and will be saying the same thing. If they haven't started looking into segmentation, they're going to. If they have, then they're just going to go further, push the boundaries more to see what they can accomplish with the segmentation. I think it's really going to be a top priority in 2023.
Yeah, I agree, Nina. I mean, personalization is the thread that ties together a lot of the trends that we talked about today. And I think it's going to be the longest lasting trend that we've discussed. You know, we're still near the beginning of a big shift towards personalization. It's going to be around for a long time. You mentioned Con Ed. They are doing a great job with this. We're working with another utility also in the Northeast to promote a time of use rate plan with a very sophisticated campaign that uses both segmentation and personalization. So there are about 10 segments in this campaign that were created based on how the rate plan would affect each of the customers. And of course, the messaging is unique for each of those segments. And then within those segments, for each individual customer, the messages are personalized to include the specific amount of money that they would save on the plan based on their actual energy use. This is an incredibly effective way to explain a time of use rate. You know, based on your current energy use, Mrs. Smith, you would save $236 each year on this new plan. That kind of personalization makes the message immediate, it makes it tangible and accessible. And I expect to see more and more of this as we use customer data and customer preferences to personalize that digital experience that they have with their utility.
Yeah, those are great examples there. Thank you both. And thank you both again for participating in today's webinar with all these topics and trends. So we did just cover our last topic, so I want to jump into Q&A. But before we do so, I want to do a quick poll question to the audience to see what their take is on what we've talked about today. So audience members, I'm going to open up that poll for you right now. Your question is, what is your utility's biggest priority for 2023? And this is an open-ended question, so please feel free to submit whatever you're working on right now. I know that we're excited to see. I'll leave this open for just a few minutes to let those answers roll in. So just a reminder, we are going to jump into Q&A next. So please feel free to send in as many questions as you want. We'll get to as many as we can in our final 10 minutes or so in the webinar. So yeah, Give it just a second here to see what those responses are. Awesome. Okay, so those are coming in. It looks like transition to clean energy is a hot topic, a priority. Segmentation and personalization, like we just talked about, that's great. Increase race registrations, like running events, and providing value for their sponsors. Great. Attribution and conversion tracking, all great priorities to have. If anyone's curious about the answer to in the whole section on your screen, you can see responses as well when I close the webinar, or close the poll, excuse me. So I will go ahead and close this poll out. Thank you so much for submitting responses. We're excited to see all that you accomplished in the new year. And with that, I'm going to go ahead, and Nina and Brian, I have a few questions for you here. So Nina, I want to kick it off with you. This question asks, of the top trends that you've talked about, where should utilities start? Where is the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with data. Even that last poll response that you just read out, tracking what people are saying. As I mentioned before, in tandem with last point, we can utilize data to find the right customers and the right channels and target them with the right messages. That tackles segmentation, personalization, and even touches on the type of interactive content that we want to serve up to those clients.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, you froze for 1 second, so I was just making sure you were done. Awesome. Thank you so much. Brian, this question I'm gonna send over to you. Are there any updates on social media trends that are worth knowing?
Yes, great question. So first of all, anything you do on social now should be video, for reasons that we just touched on. There may be room for some catchy graphic posts, fun, meme type things, meme type images, but certainly don't waste your time with text posts or still photos. Facebook and Instagram have pretty much converged into TikTok clones at this point, and video is really the only thing that is driving engagement on any of the major social platforms. Second, you need to think of social as a paid channel. You just can't rely on organic reach on social anymore, especially for businesses. Without a budget, no one is going to see your videos. It's that simple. And you should be spending that money. Social is a really important communication channel for a lot of customer segments. Customers you can't reach on email or even SMS, you can reach on social, but you probably can't do it for free. So when you think about your budget for email, SMS, direct mail, you should be spending a comparable amount on the social channel. It's just as an important a communication channel for some customers. And the last thing I'll say, I think that you can forget about Twitter. It has never been especially effective. Twitter's probably fine for outage alerts, but don't think of it as like a education or communication channel. Your main social channels should be Facebook, Instagram, and especially TikTok. And I'll say that utilities really need to start taking TikTok seriously. We have had a few conversations with our utility clients, but we have not seen many examples of utilities actually diving in and taking advantage of this. The thing about TikTok is it's not just popular among certain customers for watching videos. They're also using it as a search engine. They are getting information, finding answers on TikTok. And you need to be there. Your utility, as a utility, you need to be there answering those questions. Just yesterday, some of us we were looking at TikTok, working on a solution for a particular utility client. The first video we found was a young customer complaining about her electric bill and complaining about the utility by name. And that video had been watched by about 50,000 times. The utility's response, of course, was nowhere to be found, right? And they may not even know that this discussion about their high rates is going on among all these customers on TikTok. So as an industry, we need to be proactive. We need to start communicating with the TikTok audience in their preferred channel.
Absolutely. That's a great example that you just shared. Hopefully, whoever that utility is goes and finds that, responds accordingly. And we made a great point that I read an article recently that said TikTok is basically becoming the #1 search engine outranking Google at this point. So that's pretty impressive. Okay, so thank you. Next question that I will ask here, and Nina, I'll send this over to you again. They ask me to be clear, don't look at open rates anymore, or look at them but don't invest in their worth too much. What do you think, Nina?
Yeah, that's a great follow-up question to what Brian and Jeremy spoke about. And this is the question we keep facing. It is a metric, right? It's worth reviewing, especially if we're testing subject lines. It is not the metric that we can depend on anymore. We should not be relying on the end-all be-all for all measurement. One thing I do want to note is that the click to open rate is directly impacted by the open rate. So we've actually been making changes internally to our own platforms to emphasize the click-through rate instead of just focusing on the traditional click to open rate. So therefore, I would recommend not relying on the click to open rate or the open rate solely. As we talked a lot about interactive content and personalized content, I believe we should be moving towards the click-through rate and conversions, as Brian said earlier, to be the top indicator for review.
Perfect. Thanks, Nina, for clearing that up. I think we have time for one more question here. And I want to make sure I hit on this one because someone mentioned that this is a priority for them next year. So Brian, is it important to start with segmentation or personalization first, or work on them in tandem?
Yeah, that's a great question. They definitely work together, and utilities should be doing both. Depending on the campaign, the particular campaign, you may use segmentation or personalization on their own, or you may use them together. In terms of what to start with, segmentation is probably easier to approach. The barrier to entry is lower. So if it is a choice, say, with allocating resources or just trying to get started on a strategy like this, I would recommend starting with segmentation. But I would also recommend that you follow that up by adding personalization to your segmentation strategy. The rate campaign that I mentioned earlier is a great example. You have different groups of customers; those are your segments. And with the rate campaign, you can imagine like EV owners and smart thermostat owners, and you have your heavy energy users and your light energy users. Those are your segments, and the message is going to be different for each of those groups when you're talking about rates or energy costs. But then within those segments, you also want to personalize those messages to include the actual energy use or the actual savings for each of these individual customers. So, you're using both segmentation and personalization in sync. But there are lots of campaigns where it's appropriate to just use segmentation. And again, that may be a better place to start as you're just sort of gearing up for this effort. For example, a business campaign that is segmented by industry, and we have experience doing this, it makes business campaigns much more effective when you're giving a manufacturer and grocery stores and healthcare facilities different program information that's relevant for their specific industries. That is a relatively low level of effort, but really, really effective way to get into segmentation. And then, of course, you have personalized campaigns without segmentation. And the idea here is that every single message is personalized to each customer. A great example of this would be a dynamic newsletter. So using machine learning, we can identify what types of content, what topics each individual customer is interested in. And then their newsletter, that individual customer's newsletter includes content that is recommended for them. And it may be unique for every customer at the utility. This is the kind of thing that Amazon is great at. Netflix is great at this, right? I mean, this isn't really a new concept, but it is the kind of thing that utilities haven't yet started applying. But I think it is time now for our industry to start approaching these kinds of personalization strategies that their customers are looking for.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brian. We have run out of time. We're right about at 2:00 here. So I know that we have questions that we weren't able to get to, but we will follow up offline with those. So I just want to say thank you so much to Brian and Nina and to all of our guest speakers who joined us for all of those insights and advice today. I know that I have a lot to take away from this. I think that a lot of our audience members have a lot to think about as well. So speaking of, thank you audience members for joining today and for your great questions. As a reminder, the presentation materials and the playback link to the recording will be emailed to you. If you have any additional questions, though, please don't hesitate to contact us. There's also going to be a brief survey right after the event ends. Please don't close out your browser window. We would really appreciate your feedback. So this was our final webinar of the year, but be on the lookout for our 2023 webinar schedule soon. Thank you again for attending and have a great day, everyone, and happy holidays as well. Bye now.
Thank you.